In 2004, Portland, Oregon had about 50,000 registered vehicles. That number has been declining by approximately 1.7 thousand vehicles per year. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to complete the table below to find an expression that stands for the number of registered vehicles in thousands in Portland Y years after 2004. Show the arithmetic to help you see a pattern. So let's think about how this problem is going to work for us. So we want to pay attention to a couple of things. One is that we're finding the number of vehicles in thousands. Okay, so if I'm talking about 50,000, I don't have to write down 50 followed by 3 zeros. It's understood that it's in thousands, so I would just write down 50 for 50,000. Okay. Now they're talking about since the year 2004. And notice that's where our problem starts. In 2004, Portland, Oregon had about 50,000 registered vehicles. And so years since 2004, if I'm 0 years since 2004, well, that tells me in 2004, I would have had 50,000 registered vehicles. So I can go ahead and put that 50 down. And notice I'm just using the 50 because it tells me here this is in thousands. Now let's think about what would have happened 2 years later. So years since 2004, so now we're up to 2006. So in 2006, how many registered vehicles would there be? Well, notice that it said that the number has been declining. And so if it's declining, that means the numbers are going down. So we're going to be subtracting. Now what are we going to be subtracting from that starting point of 50,000? Well, every year that goes by, we're going to be seeing a decrease of 1.7 thousand vehicles. So if I take 1.7 and I multiply it by 2, that's going to give me 3.4. So my original 50,000 vehicles has declined by 3.4 thousand. And so if I work that out, that's going to give me a new total of 46.6 thousand vehicles would have been registered 2 years after 2004. Now what about 4 years after 2004? What would we see? Well, if it's continuing to decline at that same rate, in 4 years, if I'm losing 1.7 every year, 1.7 times 4, well, that's 8, and we carry the 2, so that gives me 6.8. The original 50,000 vehicles that we started with in the year 2000, from that we're going to subtract that 6.8. And when we do that, we're going to end up with 43.2. Now let's see if we can generalize this for some Y years. So I can see that our starting point of 50 is always going to be the same. Now let's think about where this 3.4 came from, where the 6.8 came from. Remember where those came from. Those came from over here on the side. Okay, there's my 3.4, there's my 6.8. What we were doing is we were taking the number of years times the decrease every year. The number of years times the decrease every year. So we're going to do the same thing. 50 minus the number of years, Y, times the decrease every year. So that's going to be my general expression. Now when we come down here and evaluate that for 7, so we're going to have 50 minus, now instead of Y, we're evaluating that for 7 times 1.7. Okay, so we'll do the multiplication first. 50 minus, that's going to give me 11.9, which is going to tell me that that comes out to be 38.1. 38.1 thousand vehicles registered, right? And that's 7 years since 2004, so that would tell me in 2011 would be our approximation. So that's what we would think for the number of registered vehicles.